and welcome to the latest installment of PSG Talking. I'm your host, Ed, and on today's show, yes, we're talking all about PSG's dramatic win over Liverpool in the Champions League, and we also have some questions to get to from listeners. Before we get started, though, let me thank all of you out there who have subscribed to PSG Talk Extra Time on Substack. Really appreciate your support. Hope you enjoy the content we've been putting out. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you consider doing so. It's $5 a month, $50 for the whole year. Get access to more podcasts and articles from myself and top journalists who cover PSG. All right, joining me today, we have Marc Damon. You can follow him on X at Marc Damon9. Marc, welcome back. We are recording just a few hours now after the final whistle. PSG, they defeat Liverpool 1-0, and with the aggregate score at 1-1, they went into penalties where PSG won 4-1 with two incredible saves from our favorite goalkeeper, Gianluigi Donnarumma. I don't know about you, but I needed some time to calm down after that match. My hands were shaking. So let's just start with tell the folks how you're doing after that thrilling match. Where did you watch the game? Just kind of walk us through your afternoon here.
Oh, what a long, strange trip it has been, huh? So the first half I watched the game covertly during a meeting, and then the second half I was in the gym working out. So luckily I had the gym to myself. So I was able to sort of watch it and watch the finish my cardio, watch the shootout. And yeah, I haven't my sports teams haven't been very good lately, so I haven't really screamed like that and celebrated a win like that in quite a long time. So it was quite fun. I didn't really believe in my heart that they were going to pull that out until the first Donnarumma save. And even then, it really wasn't until Dembélé scored that penalty, the third one, where I really sort of believed that this was going to happen. And then, happiness ensued.
So who did more cardio today? Was it Jean Neves or you potentially?
30 minutes on the bike probably doesn't match whatever they had to put out tonight, because that was something.
If anyone ever wondered why football, soccer players are the best athletes, I mean, you got to be in peak physical shape to pull off what both of those teams did. We're going to talk a lot about PSG tonight, but let's tip our cap to Liverpool. I mean, that was a heavyweight battle. They were going back and forth. Haymakers were going back and forth. You thought Liverpool had it, and then it would swing PSG's way. I wish both teams could go on. I mean, that certainly felt like a Champions League final.
Yeah, it felt like two really strong teams at really the peak of their performance this season. And it's sort of cliche of, it's a shame that one of the teams had to go out, and we can save that for another time. We save that for when we lose, right? Like, it's a shame that both teams couldn't make it. Unfortunately, ours couldn't. But this is and we'll get into it, but PSG deserved that. They genuinely did. And what I've been thinking the last 2 or 3 hours or so, I think we were always in a dangerous spot when we do these shows because, we are fans first and foremost. We're not professional journalists. We're not, this is something we do for the love of the game. We love the team and we like talking about it. So I always say you don't want to ever get in the trap of thinking that you're somehow like the voice of the fan, because we only really speak for ourselves and how we feel about this. And I'm going to say how I feel about it, and maybe some people can relate to it, hopefully. But I've been watching this team since 2008, but religiously more like 2012, 2013. And there are times where it's very hard to be a fan of this club. And there have been times in the past where it just feels like you're constantly getting kicked in the balls anytime you watch them, because we as fans, and again, I'm not speaking for the fans, but I think I can make this generalization. We care a lot, and we invest a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of our emotions into watching a club that plays, thousands of miles away across an ocean. I say that to say there's been times where it feels like we care more than the players do. And that's frustrating when you put all of your heart and effort into watching something and it feels like, the first, at the first sign of trouble, the team folds like a tent. They're Glass Joe in the Mike Tyson knockout game, where it's like the first time they get hit, they just collapse and die. And we've had a lot of times where that's happened over the years. And with players with a lot bigger brand names and a lot of star power that make a lot of money and, have a lot of influence in the culture. And, we've seen year after year with that formula, this team disappoint and go out with a whimper, and you just feel like, why even bother with any of this? And this team, the last 2 years, under Luis Enrique, under Luis Campos, have completely flipped that on its head. And you don't doubt that they care. You don't doubt that they're working hard. You don't doubt that they have a plan. And you feel a pride in watching them compete, even if they lose. And they haven't lost much this year. But even when they lose, you feel like they're competing. You feel like they're playing hard. You feel like there's hope. And you feel like it's a team that, even going into Anfield, I did not think this team was going to win. I didn't think they were going to embarrass themselves, but I thought it would be a tough game to win. And it was a tough game to win, and they did win it. And really, they won it twice. They won in the regulation and then won in the shootout. Like, they proved so much tonight. And I think there's been times where this team has had major Champions League triumphs in the past. And I just want to say, with respect to all of those moments, 2015, Thiago Silva, 2020, the pandemic game against Dortmund, Atalanta in the pandemic,
Man City
beating
this year.
Barcelona. Man City, this felt different. This felt fundamentally different from all of those other games. And it's tough to put a finger on why, but I think it's because for the first time, this feels like a team that has totally bought in, that is going to fight, that's not going to quit, that's not going to get knocked out with one punch, that has a mental toughness and a togetherness and a feeling that the club and the players and the manager and everything finally matches the passion of the fans. And I think when you talk about sports and what the magic of sports really is, it's when the passion on the field matches the passion in the stands. And those things just feed off of each other. And I think PSG have been searching for that and have really failed to do it for a very long time. And now, as I continue to ramble, it feels like we've reached that point. And this win, it feels different, I think, because of that reason.
Very well said. I mentioned our Substack, PSG Talk Extra Time, and Robin Berner actually, him and I were talking, and he put together a piece on the top 10 infamous Champions League moments. And maybe this was sort of my idea of like reverse psychology. Let's talk about all the times we've just been heartbroken over the years, and PSG really have only been at this Champions League thing for the past decade or so, and already we could come up with a top 10 of some of the most historic, just heart-wrenching losses that any fan base has ever had to go through. La Remontada in 2017, the Kimpembe handball late against Manchester United, the Benzema hat trick, Liverpool in the first leg not getting that red card on Konate. So I mean, it's just time after time, Demba Ba, and I think you tweeted out, you were a little bit apprehensive. I think we were confident that they would play well, but going to Anfield is always going to be tough. And PSG don't typically go to Premier League teams and win in these later stages of the Champions League. They did it against Chelsea, but that was years ago. That was the Thiago Silva header. And so we just haven't seen this. We've seen a lot more devastating losses over the years than we have just these moments. And I think, I'm not afraid to say it. I got a little choked up there when they actually pulled it off, because we just have been smashing our head against the wall so many times. I know we reached the Champions League final in 2020, but that, COVID and all that, and we're now 5 years removed from that. And so, I mean, I was a little bit emotional when they got through. The job's not done yet, but I was like, I'm so proud of this team and the way that they played and the way they didn't back down. And even though they lost the first match, they said all the right things. And I want to get your thoughts on this about, the players did say all the right things. And we know it across sport that sometimes players, and they always say the right things, but you never know what they really mean it. A player's never going to say, oh yeah, we're going to lose when we go there. So it's hard to read between the lines, but damn it, they went to Anfield and they backed up what they said. And I don't know if we've seen that in recent memory with this PSG team. This is something different.
Look, like, how many times in these situations where PSG are down in the first leg and going into the second leg, is it basically just, vibes, right? Like, hey, they're going to put out an inspirational video where they sort of, try to leech off the ultras and make it, talk about, the atmosphere and the fans are going to get us through it. And, the old headband Neymar used to wear, 1%, was 1% skill, 99% Jesus or something. I don't know. But, the idea that you go into the second leg down and you just feel like the only thing you have is like irrational hope. And that feeling like the only way this is going to happen is if like a miracle occurs. I didn't feel that way going into this. I thought it would be tough. I didn't think that they were going to be able to keep Liverpool off the scoreboard like they did. I think that was an accomplishment in and of itself. And there was a feeling when, Dembélé gets that goal, and that goal was a bit lucky. But when you get that first goal, now, even though Liverpool was sort of controlling the game, I think it shook them a little bit. And I think it made them even more aggressive than they were. And you felt like, okay, Liverpool are going to throw a bunch of punches here. And it's not quite, Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope, but there was a bit of rope-a-dope going on for, and sometimes you get that in football where the one team will sort of sit back and take the punches and then come out and, like Liverpool did in the first leg, right? That's classic, that's classic rope-a-dope that they did. And PSG had to do a little of that, but it was different because Liverpool were really playing well for the first 60 minutes of the game. I thought maybe the first 65. I thought Liverpool were really good. I thought their ball retrieval was better. I thought they were somewhat outplaying our midfield in terms of just winning the ball, winning second chance balls, retrieval, cycling the ball, getting it into good possession, getting some good counter opportunities. They were able to get Mo Salah in more space than he had in the first game.
I mean, if not for Nuno Mendes' kneecap or thigh, whatever he deflected it, I mean, Liverpool
that ball's
scored.
Going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that tie might be over at that point. 2-0, that's probably it. And that's the thing though, like, you knew Liverpool were going to be the aggressive team, and I thought they were too aggressive. I thought at the beginning of the game they were far too reckless, and I think that they were way too open. And, that first goal, PSG really carve them open to even get the opportunity. But, like, so many times in that situation, PSG, they can't take that punch, right? Like, 3 years ago, back to that Real Madrid game, you're up 2-0 in the tie. And all you have to do is survive like about a 15 to 20 minute Real Madrid surge, and you probably win. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't survive it. And so many times where a team pushes PSG and PSG capitulate, they don't push back. They're not capable of it.
Yeah.
And now,
yeah. Well, I was just going to say it was like that frenetic when the waves keep coming, and then when we get that like kind of pinball in the box. PSG almost always concede in that situation because they just start making those defensive mistakes. So yeah, to your point, like when I started seeing that and the ball bouncing around and we're losing or missing out on headers and set pieces are coming, I was like, it's coming because we've seen it. To your point, we've seen it over and over.
Yeah, but that's the thing about football, though. If you can survive that, it's a game that at the highest level, football is a game that sort of is played in waves of momentum. And you get 15 minutes of momentum for one team, and then the game swings, and then it goes back and forth. And you can't. It's hard to just dominate for 90 minutes. Like that doesn't happen very often in a game of high level professional football. And PSG survived. I think from like that 50th minute to like the 65th minute, that was really the dodgy part of the game. And if PSG concede there, they probably lose. But they didn't. And there's reasons for that, and we'll get into it.
Well, let me ask you about that. I mean, what did you think about Luis Enrique's strategy in the second half? I don't know if I loved what he was doing. I would have made some substitutions earlier. I think I would have brought Gonzalo Ramos on a little bit earlier, but I mean, he won, so it worked out. But I mean, we were under a lot of pressure there. Did you like what he was doing? Just kind of leaving things as is and just believing in the players to get it done?
I think he was riding it on black. You know what I mean? Like at the blackjack table or whatever.
Yeah.
He was going with what he had, and he wasn't going to make the changes until he absolutely had to, because that's the lineup, right? That's their lineup. That's who they go with.
Same lineup as what he went with in the first leg.
Yeah, and it really the same substitutions, not much difference. So if it were me, I think I would have brought Zaire-Emery on earlier in the game because I didn't think Fabian Ruiz was particularly good tonight. And I thought I thought Liverpool were sort of running around him a bit. And he wasn't really doing the running that you needed him to do in a match like that where Liverpool were getting more of the ball. But I understand why Luis Enrique went with I understand why he went with what he did. It's a big game. It's the biggest match of the year. You have this lineup that you trust. Just go with it. And then by the time you got to the 90th minute, you started to see the adjustments, in the extra time. I thought, bringing on Kang-In was an interesting choice, but he was okay. He didn't turn the ball.
He had a couple shots on target. I mean, they were weak, but he was involved.
He didn't do anything stupid, which is the bright spot of that. He brought on Zaire-Emery. That made sense. Beraldo, interesting choice, but it ended up working out. I just don't think they wanted to go Marquinhos for 120 minutes. I think that was probably the smart call. I like that. I sort of, to a certain degree, like that they kept that young core out there to sort of deal with that. That situation,
Yeah, we were. He did roll the dice.
It was a roll the dice. It was a gamble, but I understand why he did it.
Well, and speaking of gambling, I just got to give myself a pat on the back before the game. I said this was going to go to penalties, and I predicted PSG to win. I didn't get the score line right. I thought there would be more goals in this one, but I got to give myself a shout out for that. The one time in 10 years I've been right, so I'll definitely take credit for that. What did you think about in extra time? Because I was of the mindset that PSG, I thought, had a little bit more left in the tank than Liverpool because Liverpool had gone just all out trying to score, and I thought they looked a little winded, and I thought PSG, if they could score a goal, especially in that second half of extra time, I thought that would be the time to do it. And for that last 10, 15 minutes in the game, they were really putting it to Liverpool, and I thought they were so close. And when it didn't happen, I thought, it's always a toss-up when it comes to penalties.
Two words, Achraf Hakimi.
Yeah.
Even the announcers were making the point, and it was pretty obvious that Achraf Hakimi is just a absolute beast. Like, it's to use a basketball analogy. It's like when you get to the end of a game in clutch time, and you give the ball to your best player, and you let the best player dictate what's going to happen. At the end of the game, it's Michael Jordan that gets the ball. It's LeBron that gets the ball. Think about it. Every time PSG made a push in the second half of that extra time, who was the guy making the push? It was Hakimi, who at 110, 115 minutes was still had energy. He still
with the
had
captain's armband. When Marquinhos went off, he had the captain's armband on.
But think about that. At that moment in the game, to be able to continually push it up the field, to continually threaten Liverpool, like it's an insane level of stamina, an insane level of cardio.
He's the best right back in world football.
It's not close. I'm sorry, it's not close. No fullback does for their team what Achraf Hakimi does for PSG. It's not close. And I don't see anyone else in that conversation really as being that level of player for their side and being the most important player on the field for long stretches of time in that game.
Let's talk about another player, because I 100% agree with Hakimi, but there's one player we got to talk about, and that is Desiree Doué, who in the 67th minute, he came on the pitch, and he's what I would say is a big reason why you saw Chelsea fans, Everton fans, pretty much all football fans were saying that this is now a likable PSG team. And I think a lot of that has to do with Desiree Doué, because the kid is box office. Every time that he has the ball at his feet, you are on the edge of your seat, if not standing, because you want to see what he can do. He's the next Neymar. He's got all the tricks in his tool belt. I mean, the kid is exciting to watch. I love it. We'll get to his penalty there at the end, but I mean, every time, right? Do you agree? Every time he has the ball, he's beating a player. His dribbling is insane.
Yeah, and it's like, you're dealing with Barcola and Kvaratskhelia and Dembele for all that time, and then they just bring on this other guy,
Neymar 2.0.
They bring on this other guy that's just going to keep running at you, and that's the trait of this team that I think Desiree Doué is a good, not the only, but a good example of, is their relentlessness. They just keep attacking. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the game, the situation, what's being done on the other side, how they're just continually attacking. And that wears you down, and it wore Liverpool down. Like, by the end of the game, Trent Alexander-Arnold has to come off because he twists his ankle.
A bit of a knee injury there, yeah.
And then Konate basically taps out at the end of the game because he's just exhausted.
Like, he was limping. Like he was limping off. I don't know if it was an injury or if he was just tired, but yeah, he had a workout.
I just think he was exhausted. Like, I just think the PSG wears you down, like physically, mentally, because they don't stop. And they just have these guys that are just continually making runs, and they're continually attacking and continually countering and getting things in transition. And you go to the extra time, PSG had all the chances in the extra time. I don't think there was one decent Liverpool chance in the extra time.
None that I can remember. Yeah, I think you're right. And, we won't talk too much about the past, but I think, with PSG's attack in years past, it was really on one side of the pitch that you really had to worry about someone running at you and just kind of wearing out your defense. Now we have 3-4 players who can do it. across the front line, and even worse, like they can run in behind each other. They're totally interchangeable, and yeah, they're wearing out defenses. I think Konate and Van Dijk, they like a stable nine that can just that they can just kind of stay right next to. Who's not going to do a whole lot of moving, and because they usually have the physical advantage, they usually win. That's not how PSG plays. They have 3-4 wingers that can just run at you from all different angles with different skill sets, and they're speedy and they're technical with the ball, and they can beat you one-on-one. They can beat Kvaratskhelia can beat 3 defenders. I mean, he alone is a handful. And then you throw Barkla and Doué and Dembele. I think you're exactly right. I mean, they wore out Liverpool, and their defense is extremely good, but they're not built to stop what PSG can throw at you.
Well, no, and here's the thing: in reality, like Liverpool really only gave up sort of a, let's call it I would say a questionable goal, kind of goal to give up. They did an amazing job keeping PSG at bay for 180 minutes. They did an amazing job. 210 minutes. The only goal they gave up was that like bounce off Konate's leg that Dembele was just able to stay up enough to run after and tap in. Like PSG did control most of these games, and I think we're the better team. But Liverpool deserves credit for what they did to PSG defensively. And I think
Alisson for sure deserves a lot of credit for that.
And I say that as a positive in the sense that, you know, what team that's left can do that to PSG? Like we're thinking ahead, like which team do you see that can do what Liverpool just did?
I mean, Bayern Munich is probably one of the favorites, but they're defensively challenged. Barcelona are one of the favorites. I don't think they have a stout defense. You know, they're likely going to go up against Aston Villa, which maybe we could talk a little bit about, but I don't know if their defense is better than Liverpool's. You know, I think Arsenal, who beat PSG 2-0, if you come up against them, I think they've got some good defenders that are probably on par with Liverpool. They could probably pose some trouble for sure.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's it. This was, I think, as tough a defensive test as PSG were going to face for probably the rest of the Champions League. To be honest,
I think center back wise,
you might get something.
Center back wise, I agree. Yeah,
you might get something equal to this, but you're not probably going to get anything better than this. Like, what team has those two center backs and then a goalkeeper of the capability of Alisson?
And that was their MVP for Liverpool. If any other goalkeeper is between the sticks there, PSG certainly scored more goals. I mean, he was playing out of his mind. But we had our own goalkeeper, and we've got a question about maybe Donnarumma's future. So let's not talk about that right now, but let's just talk about him for a second. He ended up winning man of the match. And I kind of joked with our friend Carl Oscar Kallstrom, and I said it's like Donnarumma finally figured out he's 6'5". The number of clearances that he had off of like corner kicks and just crosses into the box, he finally realized that, hey, I'm 6'5". I just jump a little bit. No one can get ahead on these balls, and I can just punch it away. He must have had at least 10 of those, just clearances where he punched the ball away, and he punched him into a safe area. So I thought that was great. He made a couple of key saves. And then, of course, when it came down to the penalties, which is like what he does, that is his. He may not be able to play with the ball at his feet. He can't play a pass to save his life. But penalty shootout, there's not that many goalkeepers I'd want in there other than Donnarumma.
You know, it's very rarely. You know, I talk about this team for a living for the last 10 years, and it's very rare when I can come up here to the podcast and say that I was definitively right about something.
You got the Vince McMahon strut now.
definitively correct on an issue. And, you know, I love Carl. Carl is a super smart football, guy. Like, he knows what he's talking about. And usually when I'm on the opposite side of an issue with somebody like Carl, I usually think to myself, I'm probably wrong here, but I'm already in too deep. So let me Let me double and
You're
triple
locked in.
check.
You got to keep going with it.
I got to keep going with it. But usually in these things, he's usually right. I, I think I'm right. I think I've been vindicated on this one. And it's like, part of it is preference and what you want in a goalie. But like, does this team look like they struggle to play out of the back? Does it, they can absolutely
The goal they scored came from building out of the back.
with the skill and talent that they have, I think they can make up for the fact that Donnarumma isn't the best passer in the world. I think they have enough skill to make up for that. And I'm sorry, his elite traits are things that are important, especially in big time matches. Shot stopping, penalty kicks, those are really valuable things. It's not always, who cares if he can stop shots. What do you, that's kind of important, like here's a guy that can, shut you down in a penalty shootout. Like that first save, the Darwin Nunez save was a difficult save. That ball was put in a good spot. If he guesses the wrong way or even hesitates for a half second, that ball's going in. And the second save was the other save might have been, I don't know if it was on par or better, because he's got to go down to his right. He's got to stop that ball right on the line and make sure that it doesn't trickle back over the line. And not everyone can do that. Not every goal, it's not like you can just find a guy that's good at saving penalties anywhere. You know what I mean? Like that's a difficult skill. And I think the most important thing he did, which I think was really the story of the match, I think. Liverpool had, I'm going to say, probably at least 8 to 10 corners that game. You can check the numbers. It was somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. Might have been higher. PSG had João Neves, Vitinha, a lot of horizontal players, not a lot of verticality. And Liverpool was out there with Konate, Van Dijk, a tall, physical team, right? And Donnarumma went out there and shut down and neutralized Liverpool's major strength against PSG by himself. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. By himself, with very little to no help, was able to punch out, deflect, clear at least 8 to 12, 8 to 10, 8 to 12 really quality corners. And every time in that second half that Liverpool got a corner, I was thinking what you were probably thinking, and I wonder if you can tell me what you think I was thinking.
Well, I think you thought that it was going to be Konate or Van Dijk or someone was going to score for Liverpool.
I was thinking, oh shit, we
Here
just
comes.
need to just survive.
Yeah.
Just survive. And Donnarumma made play after play after play after play. And he kept going up, and like some of these balls that he was getting were like he was just getting his fist to him.
Yes.
Like
he had. I was looking. He had 8 punches, clearances. So he had 8 of those, and there was one moment, I think it was in the second half, when he actually ended up in the back of the goal with Van Dijk either next to him or on top of him, because they were trying to do what every other team has done. It's what Arsenal did. It's what Newcastle. I mean, all these teams have done is try to bully Donnarumma, and the book is out on him. If you crowd him, if you push him around a little bit, make him uncomfortable, he'll make a mistake. But he didn't do that tonight. His fist was strong, and he was getting up there, and he had 8 punches. And that really was a big part of this game. Absolutely.
And it's just like those elite shot stopping traits. And if he can then now translate that to if he can then be a dominant goalie in the air alongside his shot stopping, I don't see a reason to let him go.
I'm with you. I think it'd be really hard. Let's get into some questions because it dives a little bit deeper into this match. So let's get to some questions from listeners, and these came in. And since we're on Donnarumma, let's. This one comes from at Ska Malodine. Hopefully, I got that right. But very simple. Should Donnarumma be extended? I'll take it first. I was thinking it. I said if they brought out the contract on the pitch after that game and wanted him to sign it, I would have been good with that. Is he the best? Maybe not. I think we saw the difference between Donnarumma and Alisson, where Alisson can play the long pass and create scoring opportunities. So he's missing that part of his game, but he's so good at everything else. I think you got to extend him at this point. I don't know how you don't do it after that performance.
Yeah, I've said this a lot, and I'll say it again because I think it's important. When you're doing roster management, it's really important that you put the following equation into play. If we get rid of X, can we get Y? You know what I'm saying? If we get rid of X, is Y going to be better, right? Like if we get rid of this if player X and we bring in player Y, is player Y that much better than player X? Or can we?
I do that with managers all the time. Okay, you want to get rid of the manager? Who you bringing in?
Yeah. So you're getting rid of a guy. You're letting a guy walk essentially. That is one of the best shot stoppers in Europe. A penalty shootout specialist. Like however good Alisson was in that tie, and he was very good. They said the stat before the thing. He was 2-4 in penalty shootouts, and Donnarumma was like 4-1. Like it was a clear. Once we got to the penalty shootout, it actually was like a clear advantage for PSG.
What would happen in the penalty situation? Because if I'm not mistaken, PSG went first, and they were shooting on the end towards their fans.
Yeah.
So I didn't see what happened with the coin toss, but did you see that?
Yeah, even I think Carragher pointed that out when they interviewed him at the postgame show. Like that was weird. That I think maybe the Liverpool they screwed it up, right? Like maybe they just like picked the wrong end or something, or they like. I mean that's possible.
That's unforgivable. You're at home. You don't want the opposing team's fans at that end.
Yeah, that was weird because it's like you usually only get one advantage. You either get the end or you get which penalty to take.
Right.
And maybe Liverpool decided to take the penalties second.
Maybe they thought that was so much more of an advantage over, half the goal.
I think the rule is generally take the penalties first. That seems to be like the analytics bet that you have is take the penalties first. But, to get back to the point of the question, like, I keep always hearing like Lucas Chevalier's name. And like, I've seen Lucas Chevalier. He's a good goalie. He makes some really nice saves. He's a good shot stopper. But can you put him in a situation like that against, world-class players and he performed like that? I don't know. That's an unknown.
He's never been under that kind of pressure.
That's a real unknown. And you're getting rid of a known sort of top 10, top 5 goalkeeper, depending on how you rate goalkeepers, for somebody who might be that, but we don't know if he's that. And Donnarumma is still only 26, 27 years old. Like he's
still developing, and you got to think that Luis Enrique can work with him. Yeah.
Like that's really young for a goalkeeper. So I'm extending him, at the very worst, you can, if it doesn't work out in 2-3 years, you can always sell him somewhere. Yeah. It's not the end of the world. There'll always be a place for him in world football, but right now it's the best option you got. So
agree. And we've got a decent
I'm really, I don't like to say, because it's a little tacky to say that you're proud of a player because it's like, you're not their father or anything. But like, I'm happy for him, and I'm glad that he was able to vindicate himself on a stage like that. I think he deserved that because he's taken a lot of abuse from this fan base,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it's been overblown and undeserved.
I would agree
Honestly,
with that. I'm looking for so Donnarumma after the match said, to your point, I got a lot of criticisms after the first leg from some journalists in France, but they don't even know what it means to be a goalkeeper. I keep smiling. I keep working hard for PSG. I'm so happy tonight, he told Sky. That
yeah.
was Fabrizio Romano put that out. So gotta feel good for him. Yeah, he's had a lot of blunders on the big stage, and it speaks to his mental toughness to be able to come back and have a performance like that. Let's get to this question from at BDM Las Vegas, and they asked, talk about Luis Campos and how he changed the team. I mean, this is the first season, the post Mbappe era, but we've kind of been losing superstars, year by year here the past few years, and the rebuild has been faster than I think anyone anticipated. The rebuild has been better than I think anyone had anticipated. I mean, it is like we hit the reset button and then just went warp speed, and we are already there. Like, of course these players are still developing, but we just beat Liverpool in the round of 16. They're the Premier League leaders and going to win it by a decent margin. That is a very good team. Many said that they're the best team in the world, and PSG just beat them over two legs pretty convincingly, I would say. Maybe not in the scoreline, but all the stats would say they were the better team. And the sky's the limit for this team, and I think you have to credit Luis Campos, Luis Enrique, and heck, why not Nasser Al-Khelaifi, the president? He's signing the checks, he's approving things. Those three guys have completely rebuilt this team faster than I've ever seen. I mean, you look at Manchester United, for example, they're still trying to rebuild. Arsenal, I mean, they were rebuilding for years. Real Madrid and Barcelona, those teams have done well, I would say, in rebuilding when they lose
But they don't
players and
ever really rebuild. They more just reload.
yeah,
They're
exactly. So so I would say Luis Campos, whatever he wants to stay, we got to keep him. He's got an eye for talent. I love that he's able to find players in the Portuguese league. We've got a piece coming out on our Substack about players in the Portuguese league that PSG should be targeting in the summer. So I just think he's got a great eye for talent. I remember when we had other managers and or other sporting directors who only would look in certain leagues and only maybe work with certain agents. I like how open he is, and he's looking for the best and for players who want to be at the club. What they did with Kvaratskhelia, not overpaying and waiting for the right moment and get him at a bit of a discount. I mean, they haven't put a foot wrong. William Pacho, we have a question about him, but I mean, you could argue he was the MVP of this match as well. I mean, he's been phenomenal, and who would have known William Pacho before the season started? So, man, I just can't find a lot wrong with him, and I'm rambling here, but Luis Campos, Mark, take it from there. What did you think about how he's changed his team?
I think that he's like the first guy that I think Nasser Al-Khelaifi has genuinely listened to. Like, I am not the sort of Leonardo hater that some people are. I think Leonardo did a lot of good things at PSG, not as much in his second run, but definitely in his first run. And there were things, signing Donnarumma, signing Nuno Mendes, signing Ashraf Hakimi. Those are big, those are important things that he did, and he should get credit for signing those players. But I think with Leonardo, a lot of it was about Leonardo telling Nasser what he wanted to hear and, sort of playing into what Nasser naturally wanted to do and what Nasser's instincts were. So I think that's why that match, sort of why Nasser put the trust into Leonardo to run the club the way Leonardo did, if that makes sense. Like and I think Luis Campos is a different thing because Nasser is actually listening, right? Like he actually is not just wanting to hear what he wants to hear, but genuinely is letting Luis Campos steer the direction of the club.
Yes,
And he's not
yes,
getting in the way. And it was funny listening to him talk at the post game. They had him on the CBS post game, and Nasser sounded like like one of these players that like sticks to the script after the game and says the same 5 things that they always say.
Right.
That's what he
Yeah.
sounded like. He sounded like someone who's completely bought into the ideas that Luis Campos has brought forward. The patience,
Yeah.
the building with the young talent, it's not about winning the Champions League. It's about building and growing a club for the future. And he's been saying the same stuff Nasser has for a year now. And that all comes from Luis Campos and to an extent Luis Enrique, because they're almost one and the same at this point. Right? They're almost
Yeah.
they're very attached. It's very symbiotic in that way.
Yeah, I mean,
And
Luis Enrique last season, you don't get away with benching Mbappe and taking him off unless you've got full buy-in from the president.
yes, exactly correct. And Luis Campos got Nasser to listen. That's the difference. That's why this is working, because he's fully bought into it. There's no hesitation, and it's everyone moving in the same direction. And that's why, that's why he's been so valuable. And you hope that they build an infrastructure so good that, if Luis Campos were to ever leave, he has an assistant that takes over and does just as well, or they bring someone in who has the same ethos, and you're creating a culture within the club of people who believe in something, right? It's not just believing in winning or believing in winning the Champions League. It's not about just having goals. It's about having a philosophy and a belief in something. And Luis Campos is developing a culture, and it seems like that culture has arrived faster than, one would even want to think. Like, seriously, like this is so beyond what I thought year 2 would be, especially year, 2 without, year 1 without Mbappe. I genuinely thought there was going to be an adjustment period that needed to happen. And there definitely was. There was definitely a period in September, October, November where this team kind of wasn't very good. And it clicked so much faster than I could have ever imagined. Honestly, I'm floored at
Yeah.
how quickly this has clicked.
You don't see it in professional sports in any league. You don't see a rebuild like this. It truly is special. And I'm starting to see, I guess it's in March, I guess spring, and then summer transfer window will be rolling around. You're starting to see, Doué to Manchester United or Hakimi to whatever. And it's like, just so everyone who's like just discovering PSG, maybe you're listening to this podcast, these guys for the most part are all like signed for several years. They're not going anywhere. They've Hakimi, for example, signed an extension. He wants to be here. This core is here. They're here to stay. And if they don't win it this year, they're going to have a great chance next year. Like, this is the PSG team. So I'm glad everyone's discovering them and liking them, but no, these players probably aren't going to be leaving anytime soon. I mean, there was Nuno Mendes, like for a second, maybe hinted, but that was just to get more money. He got his money. He's going to be staying. So Luis Campos has absolutely built something special here. Mark, we're running out of time, so I want to get to just real quick at UD Europa. Has Dembele turned into a legit Ballon d'Or contender? Do the PSG need to win the Champions League for him to win the Ballon d'Or?
I think in a fair and equitable world, he would be a Ballon d'Or contender because he's been, he's tied for the most he's tied for the most non-penalty goals in Europe, and I think he might have taken the lead in that with the goal he had tonight. But like, that has to count for something. Like, his form has been otherworldly, and I saw some Ballon d'Or, like short lists that didn't include him, And I think that's kind of absurd. Like, he's one of the top 3 players in the world right now in form. It's pretty much the Ballon d'Or is going to be decided basically in the Champions League. And if I definitely think Ousmane's up there. He has to be on the short list. Does he win it? I don't know. Definitely on the short
think
list.
PSG they probably do need to reach the final for him to get serious consideration. He probably needs to score a couple more pivotal goals.
But look where we've been with him, from being, from that whole thing against, that whole benching against Arsenal and the whole row that created, and to where he is now. And it's like, who would have thought tough coaching actually works, right? Like,
and he's receptive to it, which not all good players are.
He took his lesson. He didn't, he took it like a man. And now he's one of the best players in Europe right now. And I don't think those two are necessarily coincidental. Like, I think he learned something. I think somebody finally, I think tough coaching does work on people. And sometimes, we've had coaches that have not wanted to do that. And, now you have a manager that's empowered to make those decisions, and, you see how it turns out. Turns out pretty well, I think.
Luis Enrique, he's won the Champions League. He's a great manager. I also think he's a good person, and he knows what he's talking about, and I think that resonates.
Yeah, we haven't said his name enough. We really haven't. Like, what he's getting this team to do, and how he's getting this team to believe in themselves at this young of an age, is fantastic. It's just fantastic work by him to turn this team into what he's turned it into. And they believe, it's like they believe because he believes. And I think, we talk about going forward, like there's really no, I went into this year not thinking that this team had any real chance of winning the Champions League. And, I can't really say that anymore, can I? I don't know if they can, but they certainly have as good a shot as anyone else at this point.
Well, let's look ahead as we wrap up here. Looking at the fixture list, we've got a big one on Sunday, March 16th. The Le Classique against Marseille at the Parc de France. And, and then in terms of the Champions League, I mean, unless there's a big result, it's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Aston Villa. So you've got the return of Unai Emery coming in with Aston Villa. You've got Marco Asensio, and someone in our Discord was joking that said, "Hey, Asensio, if you maybe score a couple own goals, maybe we'll give you a big contract extension or something like that." So, there's some overlap here. These teams will be somewhat familiar with each other, and but you still have to favor PSG, and if they can get past that, then all of a sudden you turn around and you're in the semifinals of the Champions League again. It's not inconceivable.
This is a, weird, besides this being the Jonathan Johnson Bowl, which I mean, I think you have to get him on at some point before this fixture to just to, preview it. And again, this is his fixture. This is his quarterfinal.
Yes.
This is all he's ever been waiting for, I would assume, to have this happen.
In football, do they sell those like house divided jerseys, like half Aston Villa, half PSG jerseys? If not, we need to get a custom one for him.
Yeah, no, that's got to be fun. That actually does have to be genuinely fun to have that happen. But like, I'm just looking at this is like a who's who of PSG history. Like, Marcus Rashford, you remember him? Remember him scoring the game-winning penalty in the Man United 2019?
I remember being linked with him at like 8 of the last summers.
Emiliano Martinez prevented Ousmane Dembélé from winning a second World Cup.
Ooh, good shot. I didn't think of that. You're right.
Marco Asensio, former PSG player. Luca Digne, former PSG player, plays for Aston Villa.
He's still playing. Okay, good for him.
Ross Barkley, former Chelsea player, I believe.
Everton too, I think.
I think he's former Chelsea. It might be wrong.
I could be wrong.
it's an interesting roster. It's not a bad roster. It's a good roster, but it's not like a win the Champions League roster. It's a mid-table. Like, let's see where they are in the Premier League right now. They are 8th. They have 45 points out of 29 games. They've won 12, drawn 9, lost 8. So they've lost or drawn more games than they've won. Their Champions League, as we sort of go through all of this on the fly here, their Champions League, they just beat Brugge 3-1 in the first leg. They beat Celtic. They lost to Monaco. Let's see. This is great radio.
Yes.
3-0 to Young Boys. The first Champions League match. Lost to Bayern 1-0. Beat Bologna 2-0.
Sounds like they didn't have too difficult of a pathway here. I guess is maybe what you're trying to get at here.
My point is this is not some awesome team that we're playing. I mean, they could surprise. You never know. Unai Emery's a good manager. I don't think there's any sort of ill will or revenge game going on here, but I think he's a good manager. Like
he's good when it comes to like the Europa League, which he's won, I don't know, 12 times, but the Champions League is a different beast.
But he's a good manager. Like it's him and Enrique is going to be. I'll put it like this. I think him and Enrique is a better manager matchup than Enrique versus Arne Slot, who I thought was a little exposed in this. This 2 legs, I would say. I wasn't impressed with his subbing. I wasn't impressed with sort of some of the tactical stuff that they did. I think Unai Emery's a much more seasoned opposition. So I think they'll be well prepared. I think they'll have a good game plan. I think they'll sit back and try to counter. Emiliano Martinez will try to stand on his head like Alisson did.
I mean, that's a given. He's going to have his best game, even more than like the World Cup final. He's going to be insane. Just go ahead and do it.
If PSG can stay healthy, stay in form, they really should be in the semifinals. And
that's back-to-back years.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever done that. Well, they did do that. I mean, technically in the COVID, they did back-to-back semis, but not in a 2 legs. One of them was the COVID one, so it kind of sort of counts.
But back-to-back semis in a rebuilding process here, I mean that's crazy.
And I mean, being in the semis of the Champions League is really good.
It's really hard. And this is the first year of the new format too.
Yeah. And, being through 5 games of the thing with only 4 points and then having to win your last 3 to qualify, going from that to being, in the semifinals, playing Real Madrid or Arsenal with a chance to go to the final against either Barcelona or Bayern, pretty good company to be in, Can't
I would say so.
Not bad.
And let's not forget we've got undefeated season on the line. We've got Coupe de France still going. I mean, it's we're coming up mid-March, the Ides of March, and we're still humming along here. We're in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the Coupe de France, I don't know if there's really a team left in that should challenge PSG. It's a cup.
You're not fearing the mighty Dunkirk.
Not really, but you never know.
You never know. I mean, there's been some upsets in that competition. So, Mark, we're coming up on time. I want to get you out of here. It's late for you over on the East Coast. Any final thoughts on this incredible day, March 11th? This is when the Thiago Silva I mentioned earlier, the header, when they beat, Dortmund, and Di Maria's got in the COVID and the COVID year, and he's got his shirt off and he's celebrating with the ultras down. So March 11th, if it's not PSG Day in Paris, it should be. The politicians there.
I guess we'll see everyone again in another 5 years when they have another one of these. But no, look, I'll try to tie it up because you know how I start. This is PSG fans don't have it easy. Look, we do enjoy winning the French league. We enjoy beating, if in case you're tuning into this for the first time, or you want the PSG perspective on this, maybe you're a Liverpool fan and you want to you want to hear a different perspective on what happened. I don't know, probably not. But anywho, we enjoy winning the French league. We don't take it for granted. I love winning the French title. I love beating Marseille. We love all that stuff. But this really is what PSG fans live for. Honestly, we love these Champions League nights because it's especially for us United States, and out of France, us non-French fans, we live for this because this is the one time we sort of get to see the club, treated like a legitimate, top European. You know what I'm saying? We don't get pregame shows, we don't get good coverage of the league.
Yeah,
and we actually, this is the time where we actually get real coverage of the team, and we can we can watch them, and we can watch a post-game show about our team like that. We don't take that for granted. So when we get a night like this where the team wins and everyone on the panel is sad because an English team is out and the ratings are going to go down, we enjoy that. We find joy in that.
It's so true.
This was a night, and I just really love that we beat Liverpool. I don't know why that makes me feel happier, but it's I just remember just all the snobbery. Sometimes I think with Liverpool, sometimes there's a bit of snobbery that goes on, oh, we're the best team, and Anfield's the best stadium, and blah blah blah. And it doesn't matter that PSG fans were completely out noising the Liverpool fans. It was insane. You're not going to beat a PSG ultra in a chanting contest, especially if you're an English team. It just ain't going to happen.
No, not going to happen.
Yeah. So this is great. Hopefully we can, win the Classique. If we win the Classique, the league's basically over. It's already over. But if we win the Classique, it's really over.
Yeah, I think we do clinch it, if I'm not mistaken.
We wouldn't clinch it, but we'd be 2 wins away or something. It would be basically close. What a party it would be. Let's have the Classique be a party. You know what I mean? I don't want to let down. I want no mercy here.
No mercy. 7 goals incoming. I love it. I think you everything you said, I totally agree with. And you're right. The panel on CBS and Paramount, Liverpool, a big English team. It's not any English team. It's not Aston Villa. It's Liverpool, knocking them out. They definitely was a little somber mood there for sure. But to his credit, Jamie Carragher, who was there in the stands, said PSG were the best team. So, it is nice to get that coverage. And I mentioned this earlier. It's sort of nice that the tide is starting to turn and PSG are discovering this, or fans are discovering this PSG team, and we're becoming likable. You think about it, for years and years, I mean, we were so despised, and to a lot of fans, we maybe still are, just because of the nature of how we became good and all of that. But just when you look at the play on the pitch and the players that PSG could put out there, it's really nice that fans are taking notice and starting to take to this PSG team and enjoying watching them, and seeing that this is a real sporting project. This isn't just throw money at the biggest superstars. So I love that that's starting to turn around and we're not as hated anymore. So yeah, absolutely. All right, Mark, I kept you up far too long. I really appreciate you coming on here. It was your idea. You said the people are calling for this show. So whether you're a PSG fan or a fan of another club and you're coming here wanting to listen, I hope you've enjoyed it. Mark, again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you all for listening. Really appreciate your support. We'll have a lot more, of course, on all things PSG. This amazing season continues. But until next time.
Au revoir for now.